From Music City, USA, it's David Hooper and Music Business Radio.
From Nashville, Tennessee, it's Music Business Radio, your backstage pass to the music business. I'm David Hooper, your host, and with me today, guitarist and composer Lance Allen is here. Lance, welcome to Music Business Radio.
Thank you for having me, David.
Not a lot of people know your name. I think rather than talk about who you are and what you do, you got your guitar here.
Yeah.
Why don't you show them what you do?
Okay.
Lance Allen on Music Business Radio. Putting you on the spot, man. That was quick.
That's all right. Practice a lot. I'm ready to go.
Right. I like that. So you are an instrumental guitarist.
Yes.
Based out of Nashville, Tennessee. And this is how I found out about you. I read an article. It says, I'm well on my way to paying off my home with streaming revenue.
That's right.
We usually hear the opposite of that from musicians when it comes to streaming revenue. We're going to dive deeper into this because I think there are a lot of people that would love to have a paid-for house.
That's right.
All right, so let's get into your background. How long have you been doing this? You didn't just pick up the guitar,
Well,
obviously.
I've been playing guitar since a teenager, and I started making a living with the guitar probably around 2002, 2004 as a guitar teacher in the Nashville area. And I was very influenced by guitarists named Phil Kagi and Chet Atkins, as well as Tommy Emmanuel, who's a well-known guitar player, and I was inspired to do a CD or an album of the similar kind of music that they were doing. And in 2006 is when I put out my first album called Sometimes in Life, and I hired a graphic designer, had my wife do the photography, and it went on from there. We actually had a CD, but that was way before streaming.
Yeah.
And nobody was playing instrumental guitar music on the radio, and it was kind of hard to come by licensing stuff at the time. So that was my first album, and then from there it just did more.
When I think of instrumental guitar music, I think of the artist that you mentioned, Craig Chiquico. People might know him from Jefferson Starship. He had a couple of instrumental records, but it's really a niche thing. You could probably put instrumental guitarists that people would know on one hand, maybe two. If you're
That's right. We all know each other in this business. It's very niche, as you say.
It's a very niche business. It's not like a lot of these guys are going out there and selling out clubs or something, and there may have been the question hey, how am I going to make a living at this? Did you ever wonder about that?
Yeah, early on, I did. I was it was just a side thing, so I just used guitar teaching as my income at the time, and for a long time, but I never thought I'd make any sort of money unless it was played on TV or on the radio or perhaps more at weddings or things like that.
You went to school at Middle Tennessee State University.
Yes.
And like a lot of people who go to MTSU, studied recording industry management.
And I actually graduated. And if you've heard, there's a lot of people that start that program and don't finish.
Oh, yeah.
And I actually found myself I was being more used on the other side of the glass versus rotating the knobs and things like that.
So they're like, hey, Lance, come in. We need somebody to record.
I was playing guitar on everybody's thing. In fact, we even recorded Chris Young, who's a big-time country star now, and he was a part of our early stages of recording.
I'm curious about why you went in that direction. Were you wanting to work in the music industry, thinking I am a musician, but maybe I'll have something to fall back on, and that will be it, recording other musicians?
Actually, I wanted to be a session guitarist, and that's part why I came to Nashville, and college was a good thing for me, and it was something my parents encouraged, as they do, most parents would. And it was I found it to be a very difficult group to get into and to get involved with. And it was just really hard to find sessions at the time for me.
Okay, explain that to me then. So you came to Nashville. You were like the best guy in your town. Is that safe to say?
Probably, I guess.
I mean, I think it's it's a common thing. If
Yeah.
you didn't experience that, I know a lot of people have. You come to Nashville, and there's all the best guys
Right.
in the town have come here.
Right. I used to tell people that you could throw a stick in Nashville and hit a professional guitar player
Or songwriter.
or songwriter.
Yeah, my Uber driver. It's like, hey, I just wrote a hit song.
Yeah, and the Uber drivers, the hit songwriter.
So what was that like? Was it intimidating to you? Because I think there are a lot of people that are thinking about going to music school or turning full time. And you mentioned that a lot of people do not graduate music school. I think that's one of the reasons that you come and you're like, oh my gosh, I thought I took it seriously, but maybe not seriously enough, or I thought I was good and maybe I'm not good enough. What were you thinking when you showed up?
Well, everything was just a shot in the dark for me. I didn't know what would happen. In fact, I had that music store job right out of college, so I just sort of took off with that and taught some guitar lessons. And then I was getting married at the time, so I was at home all the time teaching guitar, and I didn't have to travel, or I thought touring might be an option, but then kids come, and that was like maybe not a good idea for me.
Did you think maybe I'll start playing a different style? Did you always kind of know who you were as an artist?
Yeah, I always played the style that I play, like the fingerstyle way, or blues, or any of that sort of thing on the electric guitar. Usually people are surprised when they hear me play electric guitar, but I sort of just took to the acoustic guitar because of my influences.
Right. But you never thought about switching styles, maybe like, hey, this is popular, I'm going to chase the money or chase the popularity?
Not really. I just sort of did what I liked,
Right. Music Business Radio, your backstage pass in music business. I'm talking with a real working musician. And I love shows like this because a lot of times we've got people in here that are further along in their careers, 20, 30 years, and you ask them, like, how did you get started and what was that like? And they're so far removed from that. And, of course, you talked about 2006. The music business has changed a lot since then. You can imagine how much it has changed since 1972 or the 60s.
Right.
And it's a different system now. You didn't have a major label deal. 2006, you were putting out your own album.
Right.
Tell me about that experience.
Okay, so this might be even interesting to Music Business Radio because probably not long after I put out my Sometimes in Life album, my wife and I listened to Music Business Radio, and we heard Tim Westergren on Music Business Radio. And he is the founder of Pandora Radio. And right after I heard that, I was like, I'm sending my CD in to Pandora. And I was able to get it in, and it started streaming from there. And I never really signed up for Sound Exchange or BMI or anything. I didn't have a clue.
So no kind of royalty collection officially was happening.
Not for a while.
Yeah.
And then eventually, after I had submitted my second album to Pandora, CD Baby, who I distributed through, was encouraging me to sign up for Sound Exchange. And I was like, okay, I probably got 20 cents or something, because everybody around me was like complaining about their streaming royalties.
Yeah, explain Sound Exchange, because they're out collecting money.
Yeah, Sound Exchange is like a performing rights organization for digital streaming revenue. And it's set up by the Copyright Office, and they have an office there in Washington, D.C. And I was just getting emails from them, hey, you need to sign up. We might have revenue for you.
It's kind of like that lost government money, if you've ever seen that. We may owe you money. Put your name in this database, and we'll find out.
And I think, let's see, it was, I think it was 2013 or so when I actually got my first royalty payment. So there was a long time before I signed up for it.
That's 20 cents.
It was quite a bit more, actually. And I was surprised by that. And in fact, my wife and I had just taken a 10-year anniversary trip to Costa Rica, and it was a big deal for us, and we had put everything on the credit card, and it was plenty to pay for that. So, and I was like, oh my gosh.
I love that because it's an example of you getting out, doing your thing, doing something right, and maybe you're not seeing the feedback instantly, but it doesn't mean that you weren't doing anything right. And all this time, they were collecting money for you. You had no idea about it.
No idea.
Instead of just walking away from it, Sound Exchange probably has a lot of money that they haven't sent somebody.
So if you're an artist out there, sign up for Sound Exchange. You never know if you've released music.
Did that show you that it was possible?
Yes, because the month after that, it was another amount that I didn't expect.
From Sound Exchange?
From Sound Exchange, and it was like that monthly for a while. And once Spotify came along, that's a whole nother story.
Yeah, I want to get into that. How much stuff at the time did you have on Sound Exchange? Because you were a relatively young artist. You just got out of school.
I believe I had maybe 2 albums on Sound Exchange.
So maybe
Through-
16,
which
20
would have been-
songs.
which would have been Pandora Radio only.
Right.
Or they were the ones paying out the most money. I'm sure it was on iHeartRadio and a bunch of other services, even Spotify, but I wasn't really getting anything from Spotify through Sound Exchange. It was mostly Pandora revenue, and I made sure to submit my other albums. Now I think I've got 5 or 6 albums now. I can't recall.
I'm curious to know why you think that you're getting so much money from Sound Exchange. Is it the style that you do? Is it that it's an instrumental rather than a vocal, and just the use of it would be different than just a
there's
standard pop artist?
Yeah, no vocals or anything like that. So it's all instrumental guitar. And I started thinking about it, and I realized when I went into some shops at one point, like a gift shop or a boutique or something like that, and there was that style of music playing in the background. And I was thinking, this is where my music is playing. And it's playing in background places, restaurants or tea shops or
Right.
coffee shops, that sort of thing.
Right.
And I'm pretty sure on Pandora Radio they have playlists or things geared towards acoustic guitar. And I was involved in those sort of music genome, as they call it.
I would think too, with, let's say your music is in the background of a store, we've got things like Shazam or SoundHound. It makes it so much easier for people to find out who you are. Has that helped at all? Have you noticed anything now that people can actually find out who they're listening to in these situations?
Yeah, I actually now in today's world, I get emails from people saying, "Hey, I'm glad I heard this song, and I'm glad I was able to find you." That sort of thing.
Yeah.
And it's actually quite encouraging, and it makes me want to create more music for people.
You're in a good time for instrumental music, because
right.
it used to be that people would look up songs by lyrics.
Or they would buy it at a kiosk at a Target or a Walmart.
Right,
You know, those
right.
push little buttons.
Right. So they didn't have like the opportunities to discover what they were listening to. This is Music Business Radio, your backstage pass to the music business. Lance Allen is here with me. When we come back, we're going to talk more about how he's making so much money with streaming via Spotify and other services. For now, Lance, why don't you take us out?
All right. This song is Little Bit. I wrote it for my son. It's off my Us Together album.
This is Music Business Radio, your backstage pass to the music business. I'm David Hooper, and with me today, guitarist Lance Allen, also known as the Guitar Lancer. Lance, why don't you let your guitar introduce you? So you're killing it on Spotify. As I mentioned, my first introduction to you, there's an article that says, I'm well on my way to paying off my house with streaming revenue, something we don't hear a lot in Nashville from songwriters. So I want to unpack this. What is the process of getting on Spotify?
So to get on Spotify, you have to have a distributor of your music. And by distributor, I mean CD Baby, TuneCore, DistroKid, which is a fairly new one, or you guys as 1RPM, I believe. And you'd submit your music through them, and they're the ones that would get it to Spotify, and then they would collect the revenue from Spotify.
With traditional musicians, one of the things I would always tell them when I was working with them would be that, yeah, I can get you in the store. That's not the toughest part. The toughest part is getting somebody to walk in the store and come out with your record. Same thing with Spotify. I mean, it's one thing to get on it. They'll pretty much accept everybody, but
Right.
How do you get played?
So to get played, you have to have some sort of marketing experience. You have to have somewhat of a following. You have to have an email list, perhaps. And with today's world, we have Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and all these social media platforms where we can sort of advertise or brag about what we're doing on the platform.
I'm curious about playlists. You mentioned a playlist. in the first segment of the show. And playlists, I guess, are curated by who? By Spotify.
Okay.
I know they are, because when I log in, somebody is giving me recommendations, and I think it's Spotify. But are there other people as well doing that?
Yeah. On Spotify, there's 3 types of playlist. There's a user-generated playlist, which would be like grandma who created a playlist that's public or whatever, and whoever can follow it.
It's like a mixtape.
Yeah, it's her favorite songs or whatever. And then there's a Spotify-generated playlist. Those are editorial playlists created by music curators who work for Spotify, or maybe they are subcontracted for Spotify. And then the other type of playlist would be from record labels, and those are usually their artists that are under their list.
Is that a paid playlist, kind of like paid placement?
Probably.
So there are 3 types of playlists, and how do you go about getting on one of those?
Okay.
Obviously, you can call up your grandmother, hey, Granny,
Right.
add me to your playlist. She's going to do that, but what about the other 2?
Right. The Spotify-generated playlists are more difficult to get on. It's almost like you have to have an in or know who they are, but they're a complete ghost. Whoever creates these playlists are ghosts.
So you don't know who's doing it.
You don't know who's doing it. But the interesting thing about Spotify is a lot of it is algorithm-based, meaning if I'm on a lot of playlists that are user-generated, then my name's going to pop up on the curator of the Spotify generated playlist, because they're going to see that I've got followers, they're going to see that I have stream counts, and they're going to see that I have less skips. And what I mean by skip is if someone listens to the song for less than 30 seconds and skip it, then that's not considered a stream. It would actually get docked down on the list, I would imagine. But the key is to get onto all these user-generated playlists so that Spotify will see you. And that's what I did, basically.
Okay, and how did you do that?
Okay.
That's the million-dollar question that everybody is wondering
yeah,
about.
How did I do it?
Because grandma's one, but I'm assuming you're on
Yeah.
more than just a few.
Yeah, I'm on 7,000 playlists right now. And I use Spotify.artist, which is their platform for artists to know where they're getting streams from and that sort of thing. I can go in there and look what playlist I'm on, what songs are getting the most streams, that sort of thing. It gives me a lot of idea on how to advertise and whatnot. But when I first started this in May last year, I started looking for playlists like that were related to my music, like acoustic guitar or fingerstyle guitar, or maybe music in the background. And then I started to discover other things like relaxing music or music for sleep or elevator music. I mean, hey, my music could be played on an elevator.
Pays the same.
Yeah. And so what I did basically is I found these playlists and I looked to see if they had a name or, who created it, basically. Sue Williams created this playlist. Okay. Sue has a picture on her Spotify profile. And I took the time to go on Facebook and see if Sue Williams had that I could match that up. And that's basically what I did. It took a lot of work, and I went through probably 1,000 different playlists looking up people.
And
just that
1,000
way.
different Sue Williams, I imagine, as well.
Yeah, and some people from Brazil and all over the world. And a lot of people don't actually connect with you on Facebook, or maybe they don't even use Facebook. So they use Facebook to sign into Spotify, but they might not be active on it.
Right.
But of the few that I did find, those were the ones that were influential. And I got onto their playlist by being real courteous and polite about telling them that I found their playlist on Spotify and I'm a musician that's looking to get music on playlists like yours. Would you take a listen and consider? Here's the link. Thank you very much. And those people that did find it, they would respond and let me know. And then I started seeing some stream increases.
Were they pretty receptive?
Yeah. They were actually surprised that an artist would reach out to them wanting to be on their playlist.
See, I would think that artists all over the place would be doing that.
It's starting to catch on because I've done a few things on Instagram that I now see a lot of people doing the same thing.
Yeah, everybody's watching you. Once you came out with this article talking
Yeah.
about paying off your house, everybody's watching you.
Right.
You're the guy.
So I'm like, maybe a front runner of this. I'm sure that's been done before because the article, there was advice written on how to do this. I read it in a book called The Slotify Method, and CD Baby also put out a great article on how to get onto Spotify playlists, and it's the same information. You can go look it up, and it's free to the world. A lot of you just have to put the work into it, and it's a little bit tedious, but it's been very worthy of my time, and I'm getting paid for it.
The thing I think is interesting about this is you're connecting with what I would call true fans. These are people that are curating lists. They're not necessarily doing it as a business. These are the people that really like elevator music or music to sleep by or what other fingerstyle music,
Yeah,
for example.
fingerstyle. Speaking of sleeping by, I found a sleep playlist, and I asked her, I said, hey, would you like it if I recorded you Brahms' Lullaby on acoustic guitar? And she loved it. And I did it a week later, and it became #1 on her playlist, which had over 1,000 followers. And I also found instrumental pop. This is another direction that I went into. I started doing some cover songs, and that is a huge playlist. It has over 100,000 followers now, and I've become good friends with the curator who lives in Mexico, and I've done some songs, and every one of my pop cover songs gets on his playlist.
You're listening to Music Business Radio, your backstage pass to the music business. With me today, Lance Allen, the Guitar Lancer, guitarist, composer, also private instructor. So if you like what you're hearing, he is available at guitarlancer.com. You mentioned these lists with maybe like 1,000 people. Are you finding that you are on a lot of small lists, or are you getting most of your plays from like one list that has a bigger reach?
I'm getting most of my plays from the instrumental pop, as well as the editorial ones that I'm on. And there's 2 of them from Spotify that I've managed to get 2 songs on.
So those are the lists that have like a big reach, the
big
ones you
reach.
see right when you log into
Yes.
Spotify.
Peaceful Guitar is one, and I encourage everybody to go listen to that, because I'm sure if Spotify's listening or somebody, they're going to be like, Lance, go Lance. We'll put more songs on there. And the other one is Acoustic Concentration, which I've been on for quite some time. In fact, a student that I taught through Skype, he said, hey, I just noticed you have a song on this new playlist. And I was like, oh, okay, I probably won't get paid anything for that. And well, what do you know? I got paid something 3 months later after getting so many streams on the Acoustic Concentration.
Yeah. And acoustic concentration, is that like when you're focusing on studying?
Yeah, studying, or just, kind of need some music in the background that doesn't have like lyrics that might take you away from whatever it is you're doing.
One of the things that I love that you get, and as a marketing person, it's something that if you were to mention this to musicians, a lot of them are offended by it, but music is background to our lives. We listen to music when we're out doing other things, and it's not necessarily at the forefront, and that hurts a lot of egos. But at the same time, there's a huge opportunity for you to be music to the backgrounds of the lives of people, and
Right.
you're certainly taking advantage of that with what you're doing with these different playlists. I love this.
Yeah. I was saying, or I'm thinking, it doesn't matter what kind of playlist you're on, too, on Spotify. We were mentioning earlier about being on the large ones or the smaller ones. When I was doing all of my playlist pushing, as I call it, I was asking people with 0 followers if I could be on their playlist. And that just helps grow, even more.
You mentioned reaching out to these playlist curators and basically giving them custom songs. Like they put in an order, you deliver it on that. I think that you would have a lot of great reaction, because a lot of people are just pushing whatever they've got, and you're saying, yeah, what can I do for you?
Right. In fact, I did that with one of the major Spotify playlists. I was seeing some success with like the Brahms Lullaby that I did for the relax or sleep station. And I was like, why don't I just try this for the Spotify station? And I listened to Peaceful Guitar and noticed that most of all the tracks on there were nylon string guitar. And I had a little idea that I was noodling with and just kind of having fun with. So what I did is I sat down in my living room, I recorded that idea, and I submitted it to one of the distributors. And, I did the picture, to make a cover and everything. And lo and behold, on Thursday that week, an hour and a half of my time got onto the big Spotify playlist, Peaceful Guitar.
It's that easy. Lance Allen is here. This is Music Business Radio. More from Lance.
Hi, this is Clay Myers with Still Workin' Music, and you're listening to Music Business Radio, the best show ever.
You're listening to Music Business Radio on the web at musicbusinessradio.com.
Lance Allen on Music Business Radio, guitarist, composer, and instructor, private instructor.
That's right.
So if you want a little one-on-one time with Lance, guitarlancer.com. teach you how to play like he does. Let's continue on the Spotify discussion. When I log into Spotify, a lot of times it's because I've got something in mind. I want to hear Roberta Flack, let's say. So I type in Roberta Flack, she comes up. Are you naming any of your songs based on what people are searching for in hopes of capturing that attention?
Not yet, but that could be in the plan. Because a lot of the things that are on Spotify are keyword sensitive. You know, I'm doing cover songs so that I can find new audience in that direction. And because it's all instrumental, I have a wider reach for those listeners.
Right.
So, I mean, if someone doesn't like Green Day, for instance, they might like the instrumental version of that song I played earlier. And it's just a great way to reach out to people.
Have you seen this guy, and he will record like 100 songs on an album. He'll submit the album, and the songs are all like Keeping Up with the Kardashians, 60 Minutes. They'll have like names of television shows or names of very popular stuff, and this guy's apparently killing it. It's probably not what I would consider art,
Right.
perhaps, but there's an art to it. And
Yeah,
there's
seems-
definitely a lot of people out there that I think that if you were to figure that out, there are a lot of people searching for something.
Like the one guy as an example, there's another guy that does Happy Birthday in all these different styles, you know. That's sort of like working the system a little bit. And I think that he may not have actual fans where he'll have listeners,
Right.
but that's one thing that I want to do is I want to connect with people too. And the people that do follow me on Spotify, they're gonna be excited about a new song, not so much how do you do Happy Birthday again, you know?
Or all 500 football teams and soccer clubs and baseball themes. You know, I've seen guys do that too. Or cities, different cities, same song, different city. So there are different ways to, as you'd say, work the system. You're doing something different though, and I'm curious about how you're doing that. So let's go through kind of the life of hearing about Lance Allen. You hear somebody in a store. I Shazam it. So, oh, I know who this guy is. I look you up on Spotify, I look you up on YouTube, on the internet, somewhere online. What are you doing to cultivate that relationship? You mentioned mailing lists. Do you have a mailing list?
I do. I have a big email list, probably around 3,500, which is pretty good for a solo guitar player. And a lot of those emails I got from giving music away or just asking people on my website. I believe there is Noise Trade where you can actually get emails for giving your music away. So I've gained a lot of emails from that, and as well as YouTube, just sending people to my website, or a lot of people will email me, and then I'll stick their email in my list, that sort of thing. And every time I release a song, I use that email list to generate, interest and click-throughs, basically, so that people go to the Spotify or Pandora and listen.
Let's talk a minute about that, about what you're sending to people via email. I think there are a lot of people that maybe they've got email addresses, they don't know what to send. So you're letting people know when you've got a new release. Are you putting like maybe personal news in there, touring schedules?
Yeah, it's very light, and maybe it has a really nice picture, and I make sure everything kind of has like a block built around it where it's easy to click on with your phone. It's all mobile based, and it's just real friendly, short, not too long. I do get unsubscribes, but I still have the majority of the list, and it's very, it's just a pleasant email.
We talked about search engine optimization. Are the songs that you have on Spotify, are they listed as instrumentals?
They're not. They are just listed with song titles. But my page, Lance Allen, if you listen to the music, you'll recognize it's all guitar related. There are some of my tracks that have violin and cello. Those are just, featured instruments. And those people, their names are usually written off to the side, featuring Avery Bright. He's the guy I usually hire for violin.
Right.
And so I've created this one brand. If I ever do like a singing album, I will put it under a different artist name, perhaps.
Something I've seen a lot of, we'll call them YouTubers, people who are making online videos and making money that way. They'll have collaborations. Have you considered a collaboration with other Spotify artists?
Yes, absolutely. That's something that I've just started doing, and I'm working with a piano player who's actually really killing it on Pandora, named Michelle McLaughlin. I read a article on her and how she's making a living on Pandora. So later in July, I believe I'm going to do a house concert in Utah with her, and we're going to work out some tunes and possibly release those. I'm also working with a fellow that's friendly on the instrumental pop playlist named Nico, and we're working on a cover song to go on that together as well.
You're listening to Music Business Radio, your backstage pass to the music business. Lance Allen is with me. He's a guitarist, composer, and private instructor. If you like what he's doing, he can teach you how to play like he does, maybe in a few years.
Put your work in.
It takes a while, because you play a lot, right?
Right.
It's not just you're not just a marketing guy here. You're putting hours in on the instrument itself.
That's right. I play a lot every day around students. Sometimes I go at the studio after 9 o'clock and lay down something, or I'm always noodling on the guitar and always improvising with the guitar in my hands.
In the pre-Spotify days, one of the things that you would see from artists is full albums that they would release. And a lot of that is just the distribution. I mean, if you're going to take space up on a truck or in the retail shelf, you might as well put 10 songs on it rather than one, because it's taking the same amount of space. We don't have that with digital distribution. And I'm curious to know if you release albums or singles. Is there like a marketing thought that you have on how to successfully release your music all at once, or drip it out one at a time?
Sure. Right now, content is king. So if a lot of YouTubers or even just website builders, they are always putting new content out so that people are always getting new traffic. And Google's always changing, YouTube's always changing, Spotify's changing. So if I'm putting content out there, then it's going to recognize that I'm staying busy on the platform. So what I've been doing lately is releasing cover songs as digital singles. I don't put them on a CD or anything like that. It just goes straight to Spotify or Pandora or whatever streaming service.
When it comes to the money that you're making, cover songs, obviously the economics are different. What does that look like?
Okay, so it's easy now. The distribution companies actually take care of cover song licensing, and they also take out a portion of what Spotify pays, even though Spotify also pays like the performing rights organizations for those cover songs. But the CD Baby or TuneCore, whoever, they pull out a portion to go directly to the publisher as well. So it's made real easy for the artist to do a cover song.
Yeah. Well, I love that. That's one of the things about CD Baby. I think that it's amazing. I've got material on Spotify and there are other things, and you just basically get an email from them every week or two. I don't know when it comes in, because so many of them come in, and there's like, you've got Spotify Mexico.
I can count on CD Baby being Monday every Monday.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
And they deposit the check automatically. So I think it's a great opportunity for musicians who are doing other things to have supplementary income, or it could be primary income. And it sounds like for you, it's quite primary, or at least significant. It could be if you wanted it to be. Yeah,
and it's growing, and I'm continuing to work on that daily by posting on Instagram and inviting people to my Spotify and following that page. And I'm also putting out music, a couple tracks a month usually, and it continues to grow up and up. You got some other stuff going on that I want to talk about. When we come back, we're going to talk about it. I talked about that you are doing private instruction, you're doing gigs, you got a lot going on. Yeah. You're a one-man music business, self-contained. Why don't you take us out of this section? This is called Up on Cloud Street off of my String Poet album. Lance Allen in the Music Business Radio studios. He brought his guitar. I'm making him play it. David Hooper, we've been focusing a lot on this episode about how you're making money on Spotify. Your music's being played worldwide in a lot of different places you wouldn't expect. Sometimes when somebody's trying to go to bed, for example. I want to talk about the non-Spotify revenue that you're bringing in, because you seem to have, like, there's this like switch, man, like a money switch or something, and you flipped it. And if there's money on the table, you're grabbing it. You're doing some pretty interesting things. So where do we start
the other income streams that you have.
Well, the lesson thing has been a good thing for me.
Okay,
But,
yeah.
you know, so I've had this private studio for several years and worked at a music store and learned how to do teaching guitar and one-on-one lessons. And I believe in 2007 or 8, I started the Skype lesson where I teach people using Skype. So now I've currently taught in over 20 countries in every state in the United States. So I've got all these new friends that I've been teaching guitar to that are also listening to my music on Spotify, by the way. And that's just one thing that's been really incredible for me. And I've used YouTube as a way to reach out to those people. So what I do is, and I also have AdSense and money coming in through YouTube, which I have over 6,000 subscribers and 7 million views coming in. And basically they're lessons. And sometimes they're me performing one of my songs, which is fine, but the lessons get the most streams. And there's been a couple of really great lessons that I've put on YouTube, like Brandy Carlisle's The Eye. If you want to go learn that song, I'm the guy that teaches it and teaches it correctly, where most people just show you how to strum the chords to it or whatever, you know. And it's kind of cool, you know. The artist actually gets paid for that too because of the algorithm through YouTube. They recognize it as a cover song and they get paid a little something too. So there's advertisement built into there for them. And what happens is they go back to my website and see that I teach guitar, because in every one of my YouTube lessons, I include that information in there.
I've seen a lot of guys doing that. Whenever I want to learn like an obscure R&B song, it's on YouTube. The stuff that you couldn't learn in Nashville, it is there, and I love it. And I imagine for a style like yours, which is, you know, if you're in the middle of nowhere, there's not a finger-picking guy.
Yeah.
You're the guy.
Another one is like John Mayer. He's an incredible guitar player, and if I dissect some of his songs and teach them very close to what John Mayer does, people really eat that stuff up.
Yeah. Well, you've had a lot of impact when you think of it like that. You've had all these students. You've had a lot of people watching your views. Not only are they getting enjoyment from your music, but you're helping them to create their own music. It's a ripple effect.
Yeah. Impact is a good way to put it.
You're not doing touring.
No touring.
You mentioned a house concert, though. You're doing some one-off stuff.
I am going to do a house concert in Utah in July, and that's the only thing I've got on the books. I do corporate gigs with the violin player that I work with. In fact, we've started to call ourselves Allen and Bright. And so if you need a violin player and a guitar player, you know, we'd be the guy to do it.
And what does that look like, corporate gig? Because a lot of people hear that there's money in that kind of environment. A lot of corporations obviously have a lot of money. And kind of talk about, like, you go to like a boardroom and play some music, or?
Well, not exactly. What happens basically is sometimes a company might travel to Nashville to basically show their employees a good time, or maybe their customers, they'll bring their customers out and show them a good time. And they'll rent a venue that's decked out with food and decorations, and they'll also have it in their budget for musicians. And a lot of times a guitar player gets picked because it's not a full band. It's just easy for a guitar player to come in along with a duo partner like the violinist I was mentioning. And we do quite a bit of those in the Nashville area. And we can make it jazzy, or we can make it country, or we can do whatever. You know, we can play the songs that we've worked on as well.
And it's great because you don't have to travel. You're already in Nashville.
Right. We just drive to the venue.
You got a family. Stay close to the family.
Yeah. And here in Nashville, there's the Fontanelle. I do weddings out there. And last time I did like a rehearsal dinner. And that was a great venue for, you know, what I would call it or consider a corporate gig.
For somebody who's trying to get started picking up these side gigs, how would they do that?
Well, I would certainly hone your talent and make sure that you have a good set of music that you can play from, even if you're just improvising for a short period, but always be on the mindset that you can play something that somebody might recognize.
So your death metal band probably not going to get this gig.
Not the corporate. You'd probably be playing Sweet Home Alabama, unfortunately.
So you got to have just some standard songs. Do you find that from gig to gig to gig, there's maybe like it's an 80-20 thing, that there's maybe, you know, just like a cover band, there's only just a few that you need to know to keep everybody happy?
Sure.
Same songs?
Yeah, there's plenty of classic material that you can play and somebody will recognize. And since I've been teaching guitar for all these years, I've played lots of classic songs and even contemporary songs, you know, that people would be familiar with. So I just kind of bust them out. And if I have the violinist, he can actually play the melody to the song. So that makes it even better, you know.
So you had something kind of quirky, I thought, and fun. You got a gig on Fiverr.
Right.
It seems like a cool way to reach out to new people, and certainly with your internet exposure that you've got, people can hear your music and they can get on the sleep playlist, for example. It's probably a good way to meet new fans as well.
Right. So on what Fiverr is basically a website where you can go and pay $5 for a digital service. And when I first started on Fiverr, it was doing overdubs. I thought I could do like overdubs of guitar, mandolin, or banjo or whatever, because I had that desire to be a session guitarist, right? And
so they'd send you the tracks and
Yeah,
say,
they'd
yeah,
send
I'll
you-
play guitar on it.
right. So I would do a lot of those, and it was too much material. So I
It's
stopped
a lot of
doing
work
that.
for $5.
A lot of work and they weren't only $5, but like I worked it out to where it was like if it was 30 seconds, it was $5 for every 30 seconds of recorded material. So I stopped doing that, and I did have one gig on there that was $5, and it took off, and I still do 2 or 3, sometimes up to 10 a week, and is singing happy birthday to people using my ukulele on video, and then whoever buys it sends the video to the birthday recipient.
Yeah.
So those are fun. And if you ever do order one, you'll see that I toss my ukulele up in the air and do flips and tricks with it. Things that I've worked out while sitting on the bed, so I wouldn't damage my ukulele. And it's usually just kind of fun.
That's kind of cool. So if you want to send somebody, like let's say you forgot to get a birthday card, and
Oh, we do belated birthday videos as well.
okay, so that's the market. Like, hey man, I'm running late.
Yeah.
I can still get you in.
Yeah.
I love that. You're listening to Music Business Radio. Your backstage pass to the music business. With me today, guitarist, composer, and private instructor Lance Allen. He's at guitarlancer.com. Guitar Lancer, how'd you get that name?
Well, I kind of had it on an email once upon a time. And there's this convention that I go to here in Nashville that's called the Chet Atkins Appreciation Society. And all these guitarists who love Chet's music and everything that he did come and perform and play and share their things. And one of the people that come that's a guitar hero of mine is Tommy Emmanuel. And somehow an email got switched around or forwarded, and I got to meet Tommy at the Chet convention, and I was a big fan at that time, and I got to meet him, and the first thing he said when he recognized me was Guitar Lancer, and it clicked, and I just kept with that, and now I just use my website as Guitar Lancer and YouTube as Guitar Lancer, and I have that little story to tell people as well.
It's memorable.
Yeah.
Something you mentioned to me during the break, and I think this is a great opportunity for almost any musician, is doing videos demonstrating different guitars. I want you to talk about that.
Okay, so over the years, I actually started with Takamine guitars, and I had bought this guitar that I have in here. It's a very special guitar. It's called the EF75, and it has Brazilian rosewood on the back and sides. And they only made a few of those, and I reached out via their website and said, hey, who had something to do with this guitar, because it's really a fantastic guitar. And I happened to reach the product manager when I emailed them, and he checked out my videos on YouTube and whatnot, and he said, hey, if we send you a guitar, would you do a video for it? And we'd pay you too for the video. So he sent me a guitar, and it was a fingerstyle kind of guitar, and he paid me a little something, and I got to keep the guitar as a result, which was really nice, and it opened up a relationship between me and the Takamine guitar brand. And I did several of these things. I even was invited to their 50th anniversary party at the Anaheim NAMM show, and I believe it was 2012, and that was kind of a big deal for me. I never played on such a beautiful PA system in front of 500 people or more. And when I went to these trade shows, I also had an opportunity to introduce myself to lots of other brands. And because I knew somebody that worked at Takamine, they had moved on and went to another company and then referred me to the Faith Guitar brand. And those are designed and made from a well-known guitar maker, James Patrick Eggle, out of the United Kingdom. And I got involved with Connolly Music so that I could do some videos for them as well. I think I did maybe 10 guitars for them. They sent them to me. I did videos of each one describing all the parts and the woods and everything on each guitar, and then I shipped them back, and I got to keep one. And I got another one just recently. And I've also gotten involved with the Batson Guitar Company, and those are a very unique guitar. They don't have a sound hole on the top. It's actually on the side. So those are unique guitars, and I just got back from the NAMM show with them. And I do videos as well.
There are a lot of starving artists out there, many of them musicians. You are not one of those guys.
Right. I'm always looking for the opportunity.
Any advice for somebody who's trying to flip that switch from starving artist to
Sure.
successful musician?
Don't be afraid to knock on the door, because the worst that somebody could say is no, and they're going to say no if you don't knock on the door. So if you are seeking an opportunity or want to work with something, never be afraid to ask. And there's always all these books and things you can learn on how to sell yourself, and you can also just make the right email. You can just word your email the right way to where you can open up a door of opportunity. And that's kind of what I've done over the years.
Just keep knocking on those doors.
Knocking on the doors so they'll open.
The website, guitarlancer.com, you're available for instruction.
That's right.
So if you like what you're about to hear, Lance Allen is the man to teach it to you. Lance, thank you for being here on Music Business Radio. I'm going to let you take us out with one more live here in the Music Business Radio studios. What you got for us?
Thanks for listening to Music Business Radio, a production of Tuned In Broadcasting Incorporated, Nashville, Tennessee. Recorded in the WRLT Lightning 100 studios. Music Business Radio is produced by Gary Crane, David Hooper, and Dan Buckley. Special technical assistance by Tom Hansen and Lester Fix the Chairs. All of them. For syndication information, guest booking, demo derby music, or downloading previous episodes, visit musicbusinessradio.com.